Startup TNT Life Sciences Summit that goes live tomorrow. The TNT website will be in the comments section, but it's also scrolling at the bottom of the screen right now. So you can go to startuptnt.com, take a look at it. We're going to have 20 of Alberta's top companies. Not all of them, obviously, but a lot of them that are at that stage that are looking for some angel investments. And I think if you tune in, we have well over a couple hundred people signed up already. It is going to be an awesome, awesome event. And to speak about this event today, I have Andrew MacIsaac with me. Andrew, how are you today?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Oh no, I appreciate everybody that's gives half an hour of their time to share their knowledge and show the love for the life sciences world. So why don't we talk? How did you get into the life science world?
So for me, I spent most of my career working sort of at the intersection of post-secondaries and the private sector, building sort of public-private philanthropic partnerships, focused on sort of transforming the economic outcomes of what we're able to do within the sort of training and research of academia, as well as what the needs of industry are. So for me, I worked for business schools, and we see a lot of companies spin out from universities where they've got an MBA from business school. It's been assigned to a team that has a bunch of scientists from a faculty of science or medicine, and in many cases they sort of spin their tires and don't go nearly as far as they want to go. There's a lot of complexities in the space, and so I started talking to a lot of folks who'd gone on to be very successful in that industry. A lot of folks who had graduated from post-secondaries here in Canada and then moved to the States or Europe and made it big at companies like Pfizer or Takeda or you name it. And some of the very common themes that existed were there isn't enough sort of awareness of the commercial science that needs to happen to make one of these companies grow and succeed. And so I had an opportunity to start a role as assistant dean in the Faculty of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences at the U of A. And I jumped at it. And myself and a prof there who had spent most of his career in industry sort of came up with the model that was Applied Pharmaceutical Innovation. And we spun it off as a not-for-profit institute shortly thereafter. And what we do is we provide that commercial science perspective to companies that are looking to grow and scale, as well as training folks on real-world life science projects. It's been a wild 4 years. It started out as just an idea, and now we've got 40 staff and a network of over 100 experts. And we're now working with great organizations like Startup TNT to catalyze and continue to grow the life sciences sector here in Alberta.
No, and I think we were talking a little bit about that beforehand. And for those, most people know that we always have a little brief conversation, and obviously this is the first time you and I have met. So I'm looking forward to our first interaction in person, because that's the kind of way I like to roll. But you talked about the research side and the business side, the academia side. I just kind of want to touch on that a little bit. What is the differences between a regular, say, the Jade Albert starts a regular startup, and then of course in a life science world? Let's share with our listeners how things differ a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, and it really depends on the type of company, because there are some companies in the life sciences that are straight up tech companies. Yeah. Where they have the same pathway, or at least a very similar pathway to what you'd find outside of the life sciences industry. But there are a huge component of the sector, and also where a lot of the value is in products that have a regulatory pathway, like pharmaceuticals, natural health products, medical devices, you name it. And for those companies, it's something that's totally different than the journey you'd find as a tech company, because in most cases, your initial idea will take about 8 to 10 years to reach the commercial market, and will require an investment of somewhere between $300 to $500 million just to get to the market. And so obviously that's very different than a company that can come up with a minimal viable product and begin selling it within a few months. So it's a unique environment, but it's also one that has a huge reward associated with it, not only from the sort of scale and impact that these companies can have economically, but also that you're curing a disease, you're saving lives, and you're going to have an impact in the lives of people around the world for generations to come by putting a new treatment on the market that could alleviate suffering and make the world a better place.
Yeah, I'm all about making the world a better place and solving problems that that have hampered the human race for a long time. And so on that end, do you think that is there more of an education for, let's say, regular investors? I know we're pretty excited, and we'll talk about the TNT partnership in a little bit, but is it harder to have somebody come in and say, yeah, there's a longer term, a longer investment, a longer life cycle? Is that one of the reasons why you say, hey, we need somebody that's specific like API to kind of show the way to help these companies find these investors?
So yeah, there are differences that really need a little bit of a unique environment, and it's not just us in the summit. We've got Halo Health, we've got a lot of other partners, the Life Sciences Innovation Hub and their USEED fund engaged, as well as Thin Air Labs. There's exit points for early stage investors in life science companies throughout the process. So it's not something that you have to hold on to your money for 8 to 10 years. Obviously, you get the largest return if you do that, but there are exit points from companies as you grow and scale. But the technical expertise and the sort of innovation and the team that's behind the product can be confusing and can be intimidating to investors who aren't used to that space, because there's so much jargon. There's so much unknown to the layperson about the regulatory pathway that these companies face and what it'll actually take for them to get on the market. You can have a company that sort of pops up and say, yeah, we've got this cure for cancer that worked in a petri dish, and we've shown that our drug will eradicate tumors. And to a lay investor, they can say, well, this is great. I want to put in as much money as I can. But to a seasoned life science investor, the first question they'll ask is, has this gone into an intact animal for preclinical study? Because while something might work in a petri dish, the moment you try to scale it up, you could come up with something that completely makes it flop in terms of a product. The prototyping that you do in the life sciences is a long journey. And so getting people used to the types of questions you ask in de-risking and doing due diligence on these companies is pretty critical. And then also to getting them used to the mindset of investing in something that has that you're not looking at sort of the time to revenue. You're looking at the value of the intellectual property that they have first and foremost.
And obviously, that's something that API works with a lot of these companies with. Kind of follows that entire life cycle of them, whether it be from support to start to business to investment and so on.
Yeah. So for us, we plug in for companies. We don't provide the direct sort of leadership components of them or the base sort of academic foundations for companies. What we sort of serve is as the technical development, the commercial R&D aspect. So someone who's a brilliant scientist who's going to a venture, we plug in with them. We plug in with business incubators and advisors, and we build companies with the teams that are able to do that commercial R&D. And so we work well with the leadership side, on the business side and on the science side, as a translational sort of piece between the two.
And I mean, and you mentioned the other partners, right? Thin Air Labs and Halo Health. For those who are listening, all the website links are in there, so you can click on Applied Pharmaceutical Innovation, Thin Air Labs, and Halo Health to find out some more information about them. And then obviously we started with you being based in Edmonton and TNT based with Zach and Tim up there in Edmonton. How did you see that? Hey, we got these guys over here that are running around, jumping, drinking beer, making friends, having fun. You're like, how are we going to collide our worlds where it's a little more? I know Zach's a scientist. I mean, he always talks about it, but and if he's listening right now, there's your plug, Zach. So how are you able to make Zach's dream come true of having a life sciences summit?
Oh, you got it all wrong. Zach made my dream come true.
Oh, there we go.
No, so we'd been around TNT for quite a while. Since the beginning, Zach's been invited me to the weekly events, and we've bought quite a few rounds. Unfortunately, I've got a 2-year-old at home, so I don't go as much as I used to. But we also feel a little bit of a spiritual connection to Startup TNT because they launched in a grassroots method very similar to ours. API spun out and sort of came up with a solution to a big problem that existed for almost decades within Canada, and we scaled it not by having a funded program, but by working with companies and sort of bootstrapping it ourselves, similar to the way that Startup TNT got their start. So we were at, I think it was an event that Startup TNT was doing in the spring, and I sort of put out a challenge. I challenged Zach to host an investment summit for life science companies because I really think we can capitalize on momentum in the space and also attract companies here to the region. The call for companies within the Life Sciences Summit is open. They just have to establish operations here within Alberta. And the ability of Alberta to scale life science companies is phenomenal. And so I think as part of the summit, we'll do a great job of promoting Alberta is the place to go where you can grow. And, I think we've got it in droves in Calgary and Edmonton and Lethbridge and beyond, the capacity to take companies in the life sciences space that are just give academics an idea and turn them into companies that are moving rapidly through the development process.
I think that's just a good leadway into talking about the next question about the great life sciences companies here. I mean, we were fortunate enough to get a nice tour of the facility here at the University of Calgary, and I was thoroughly impressed with the lab space and how they do it, and the collaboration that goes on there. It was excellent, and I do agree with you. And we talked about this before about the lack of giving startups the love that they need, and that's why Telling It Like It Is started 4 and change years ago, because we need to talk about these companies a little more, and talk of whether it's the future of tech inside these life sciences or just tech in general. So how are we going to get the word out there a little bit, and talk about maybe some of the companies here that are in the summit that I don't want to say play favorites or anything. There's 20 great companies, and again, go to Startup TNT, take a gander. The pitch night is tomorrow, and all you have to do is sign up, and it's free. So let's talk about the future of life science here.
Absolutely. So I can't play favorites in the summit. I don't want to unfairly give someone a plug unless I'm prepared to talk about all 20 companies. We've only got a limited amount of time yet, so I can talk about some of the success stories that are happening elsewhere, sort of as these companies grow and scale, and sort of show what that looks like. There's a lot of traction in the space. Even in Calgary, there was Parvis that did $1 billion licensing deal a couple of years ago, but things have continued to grow and scale. We've got companies in Edmonton like Entos, which just brought in a $50 million deal with Lilly, which is a large pharma. And, basically a few years ago, they were at that early friends and family seed part of their company and their growth. We've got Hepion Pharmaceuticals that raised $200 million in the US and is doing their commercial development here in the province. We've got a lot of interest now with Alberta serving as the site of security of supply manufacturing for small molecule drugs. We've got vaccines. We've got medical devices. We've got digital health companies. We've got you name it. And so if you look at the summit, it's also a microcosm of that. There's companies that are focused on topical ointments as a pharmaceutical product. We've got companies that are focused on innovating an aspect of the supply chain for some of the inputs. We've got companies that have got drugs and therapeutics for the animal space. It's a very diverse group. And so when we talk about the life sciences, we're not just talking about, a pharmaceutical drug on the market. We're also talking about natural health products. We're talking about the outputs of the sort of agriculture industry that we have here in the province that you can refine down to an input or a medicine itself. We're talking about medical devices that are changing the way that we treat disease from a technical basis, and much more and beyond. So I'm really excited for the summit itself and the top 20 pitch that's coming up. So it should be great. I would highly encourage people to tune into it if you want to get a look at what a lot of these companies look like, and then to keep on watching, because as we continue to grow and scale, these companies will be the ones that you'll see in the headlines a few years down the road, who are rapidly expanding, who are doing these licensing deals and scaling and growing here and providing, yet another angle for diversification within the Alberta economy.
Yeah, I mean, I was thoroughly impressed with all the companies that applied, and I'm so pumped about tomorrow. Like, I just can't wait to see what's out there and start to meet some of these founders, right? And start having that interaction and diving into their companies a little more, because wow, like it is thoroughly impressive. And it is something that until even the last summit, we didn't have any really investments into the life sciences. And after seeing, they're not in it, so I can, and Nir is going to be on next week to talk about the life sciences. So we're going to have back-to-back kind of conversations, and Pulse Medica, I was like, wow, like what they are doing is fabulous. And I'm almost more intrigued in there, even though I'm kind of in the Calgary. I was like really diving into that company in the Edmonton area, going, holy shit, they're doing a lot of great things here. So, I mean, out of all these 20 companies, I mean, there's going to be so many that are going to possibly change the world.
Oh, totally. And to your point of Edmonton versus Calgary in this, we're a pretty integrated ecosystem in the life sciences. Just this past week, there was a headlines of a Calgary company that's doing clinical trials for a COVID drug here in Edmonton, Calgary-based, doing clinical trials in Edmonton. And for us at API, we've actually just finished a batch of manufacturing produced here in Edmonton that's going down to Calgary for clinical trials. So there's a huge interplay within the province on this, and both Edmonton and Calgary have unique strengths to bring to the ecosystem as a whole. It's actually really awesome to see the collaboration and the sort of strong provincial lens we're able to bring to the sector and promote it both in Canada and around the world.
Couldn't agree more. And I mean, I say this all the time, whether it's tech or life, it doesn't matter. We are such a collaborative ecosystem. It just makes me happy. And every time I talk to somebody in Toronto, they're like, man, I wish I was more like you guys. It's not knocking Toronto. Maybe we're just not as cutthroat, and we're fine if everybody gets in on the action, and everybody helps and make sure that we are successful. And speaking of being successful, why do you think Calgary or Alberta or Edmonton or Lethbridge is such a good place for these companies to set up shop? What differentiates our province from really anywhere else in the world?
Well, I think we've got a whole bunch of things going for us. Front and center is the phenomenal post-secondary system here. But if you tie it in with the entrepreneurial spirit of Alberta, we've been a province that's been very focused on entrepreneurship and building companies. You tie it into having a very favorable regime for companies to grow and scale here, be it from low cost of land, cost of doing business, and just the fact that Alberta is a great place to move to and build teams in. Some overheated life cycle type ecosystems like San Diego you've got a company, you launch it, and you basically have your staff turn every year and a half because of the competition between startups for talent. Edmonton and Calgary are both at that scaling phase where companies that are getting in and getting here now are recruiting talent that are staying with them for 10 years or more. And it's a great time for the sector that will really enable it to boom and grow over the next little bit. And we might end up becoming a San Diego or a Boston where we begin to get that talent squeeze. But right now, it's the buffet is open, and people can come in and get their first serving. So it's exciting from that standpoint. And I really do think that if we focus our efforts together, the opportunities for Alberta in this space is huge. I always draw parallels between the life sciences and oil and gas, because it's a sector that both has a large ecosystem of large multinationals. You get which is the Pfizers or the Shells of the world. You've got a healthy ecosystem of SMEs, and that's everything from the sort of exploratory drilling companies on the oil and gas side to the startups and spinoffs like what we're seeing here within the summit, and a huge interplay between the two as they all grow in life cycle and get acquired, bought out, all that type of stuff. And then if you look at the jobs within the companies, it's white collar jobs and PhDs, but also a lot of technical trades, you name it. It's a sector where there's that sort of full participation of the economy, and in a province where we've geared our post-secondary system to supporting a vibrant oil and gas sector, it's a really easy pivot. And it's also a pivot for people who have careers in that industry to move over, especially on the small molecule drug side, where it's essentially a very highly refined petrochemical. So I think there's a big natural advantage here. If we're looking at the future of Alberta, in the next century, it'll be the clean energy piece, it'll be the life sciences, and it'll be the tech that I think that will be the big drivers of our growth and diversification.
And I love the fact that I love that stat that people are staying with a company for 10 years rather than having that turnover, like you say, in the Valley or maybe other locations around North America. I think that's kind of the Canadian way, right? I mean, I think back to my parents, right? 30 years, 35, 38 years with the Royal Bank and CN and things like that, right? And everyone's like, boom, rolling around, but no one ever talks about some of the loyalty that is here. And I don't know if that's the right word, but that people feel passionate. They want to work on something here. They love working here. They love living here. We all know about the benefits of the mountains and the Rockies and things along those lines. But I mean, there are so many great people here, and ones that are coming out of the oil and gas industry with so much knowledge that can be applied into this industry. So I think that's a valid point.
Yeah, totally. And what I would use the word, I would say there's a sense of ownership here. People feel invested in what they're doing.
Oh, absolutely. No, I totally agree with that. And again, you're and I talk about the investment community here all along. And I was, I had a meeting with Brian of Metiquity the other day saying, we both, we're at that crawling stage when it comes, and we don't have a lot of that, maybe $2 to $5 million checks yet, but we're going to get there, right? I mean, you have the TNTs and the Metiquities and the MTechs and thin airs and what James is going to be building and so forth. Like we're coming, and it's a great time to be involved in this community, in this province. There are great things are going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years, and I mean, I'm just happy to be along for the ride.
Completely agree. And we'll even look at the summit. I really think we'll do north of $1 million for companies. And that's from a little scrappy grassroots program that's grown by the demand of people for this type of stuff. So I think that's phenomenal. I don't think you'd see that elsewhere. When we put out some of the pieces promoting the summit, we had a response from around Canada. Nowhere else are they providing this type of summit, these types of resources, and it's critical for these companies, and it's also great because we're getting engaged, interested investors, learning about the life sciences and learning about investing in them. And I think it's going to not only support the companies that they've invested in here, but it'll start to get people to understand what it's like to play in the sector, and what it's like to look under the hood of some of these companies. So it's very exciting for us.
And I recruit a lot of companies and bring them in, and I tell them that the people that you meet and the connections you're going to make are going to be more important than any of the money you may win. There are so many people out there that are willing to help and introduce you to somebody else, or saying, hey, why don't you try this? I mean, it happens all the time. There's collaborations everywhere. So I don't think it's going to be any difference in this summit.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm really looking forward to it. For us, this has been a labor of love. We're in the midst of both this summit, as well as a big program to bring federal dollars to the province to support the manufacturing sector in life sciences. Nice. And the sort of grassroots support we've seen for both initiatives at the same time is phenomenal. The excitement that's happening here is something that I think we haven't seen for a long time. That's great to be excited about something like this. So yeah, it'll be a really, and I don't want to jinx all of us. I think it'll be a really great 2022 for the province. And don't blame me if something happens for jinxing it, but I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm also looking forward to the Clean Tech Summit that's coming afterwards from Start TNT. So there's so much happening here that's really, really actually exciting. And I also give a kudos to you for helping get the word out, both about Startup TNT, about us, and really this type of dialogue and this type of platform to sort of tell people what's going on is a key component in ensuring that we get a sense of the cool stuff that's happening in the province, because it's easy to get stuck looking down on the ground and not realize some of the awesome stuff that's happening.
Yeah, I thank you for the kind words, and I mean that's why this started, right? To kind of get it out there, and not that I want to say that we want to become like a big American type thing, but sometimes we have to start bragging a little bit about what we're doing here, and start yelling from the mountaintops and saying, "Hey, look at us on our chest," and saying we're actually we are kicking ass and taking names here. Like we're doing good things, and there's nothing wrong with that. So. The more that we can, get out there and God, and I agree with you. Like TNT, we've raised $5 million for almost 34 companies. 9 of them have gone on to follow up raises. Right, all of them are still in play. That goes to show you that there's a lot of great companies here, and that's only in just over 2 years. Never mind what's happened and what's going to happen. But I am going to hold you accountable to that. I'm going to cut that clip and I'm just going to play it on loop on my LinkedIn and saying, "Hey, Andrew says 2022 is going to be awesome." So.
There you go. Now it'll be in the public record.
Exactly. But that kind of leads into my next question. What's you talked about you're bringing some stuff in. So what's next for API?
So we've had a huge amount of growth over the past 4 years, and we're sort of in the midst of a whole bunch of large projects. Like I said, the manufacturing one, bringing so the federal government invested in a lot of vaccine production around Canada, and one area that's missing is small molecule drugs, which are the drugs you take in hospital and at home. The most common drugs that most people take are small molecule. Everything from Advil to propofol that you use to go under for surgeries or to be on a ventilator. We really see a strong chance for Alberta to play a big role in that supply chain, both for a security of supply for Canadians so that they get the drugs that they need when they need them, but also too, as the antivirals for COVID-19 launch up and get more important as we move into sort of the later stages of the pandemic and learning to live with COVID-19. The ability for us to produce these in provinces is huge. So that's one of the biggest things we're doing, and then just continuing to grow and support companies. We've supported about 16 SMEs so far, building them virtual teams to move forward through the regulatory pathway, and done over 35 industry projects. And we're about to launch a big new program with a large pharmaceutical company in the coming months, and a whole bunch more stuff within the post-secondary system. So it's going to be an exciting year for us. And so, maybe if you play that clip and 2022 became a horrible year, at least to say, well, we did some good stuff. But yeah, I really have fingers crossed. We can't get much worse than the past 2 years. So.
No, I mean, that sounds like some great things. And I agree with you. I think 2022 and I think everything up to 2030 is going to be awesome. We've got a lot of the right people, a lot of great organizations like API and yourself and Thin Air, not just the investment ones. I mean, the labs that are out there that are happening. And I mean, it's just, it's just a great time here. And again, I do get interviewed a fair amount and talking about it, and I'm going to just, give it a plug here. I just wish the mainstream media would, kind of start picking up some of these stories a little earlier and a little more often, and showing it out there, and to pound on our chest, as I said, because you know what, that's only going to help bring companies here, have companies saying, you know what, I'm coming to Calgary or Edmonton or Lethbridge to set up shop because look what's going on there. So. The boasting has to start and continue a lot more, in my opinion.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, for sure. Oh man, I'm always sad when these come to an end. We've had such a great conversation, and again, for anybody that wants to find any more information about API, click on their link in the comment section, take you directly to their website. Also, Startup TNT. The summit is tomorrow. It's starting. The pitches are tomorrow. You can go to Startup TNT, and also Halo Health, Thin Air Labs. We appreciate the support that they're giving us to promote this as well. So as we get to our
Innovate Calgary, the Life Science Innovation Hub and USEED, top notch in terms of their support. Innovate Edmonton, definitely a huge supporter. Edmonton Global, people have really come together for this.
Oh, and I mean, and that just goes back to our conversation earlier on, right? The collaboration in this province is off the charts. Everybody just wants everybody to be successful, and it only benefits our entire economy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So our last question, again, I always say this is one that I've been asking for 210 episodes. I thought it would be done after about 7 episodes because I would hear every answer, but I just keep getting more and more, just the great advice that comes out from the fantastic guests like yourself, Andrew. So if you had one piece of advice for a life science company that is going to start up, what would that be?
My advice would be to move as quickly as possible to de-risk. It's really, especially because a lot of these teams are scientists, it's great to sort of hone and continue to refine, but you never really know until you've moved forward and de-risked. And part of that is leaping and jumping with what you've got, and the other part is focusing on not the branches of science that lead you to the side or to new discoveries, but really sort of focused on the goal of getting that to the point where it can save lives and support patients. And if you hit a roadblock, that pivots you to a new invention or a new product that can move forward. But you always got to keep your eye on that final prize. Otherwise, you'll find yourself 10 years later still chasing science, and it's a thing that can be a detriment because you'll lose out on the ability to really discover something that could move forward. So being flexible, adaptable, and focused on de-risking and moving forward with what you've got, and if it doesn't work, move on to the next thing.
No, that is outstanding advice, and I think that also applies to not only life science company, any company in general, right? Just hey, get after it. I know we sit there and we talk about, and I see too many people that just spinning their tires on something that they should. It's like no, come on, let's go, let's move, let's go, next thing, right? And I can see how, especially in the life science world, how people can kind of get caught up in that research. I'm sure you see it probably way too often.
Oh, totally. Well, a lot of times too, because chief scientific officers are coming from careers as academics or they've done PhDs, and there's a different sort of mindset when you're moving from discovering new knowledge to basically proving that an invention will work for a specific indication in a regulatory pathway. So bit of a mindset thing. But you're right with the parallels. I think a lot of these things are human problems, and if we look at sort of getting people to focus on the fundamentals, not only in the life sciences but also more broadly, they'll find success. And it might not be what they thought it was first going to be, but they will find success.
And that's what we want. We want everybody to be successful and everybody to share in that success and have a province that's rocking and rolling and moving upwards. So again, thank you so much, Andrew, for spending time and sharing your knowledge today. Again, anybody that wants to check it out tomorrow, I believe it starts around 4:00. Go to startuptnt.com. It's free. We're having after parties in Calgary and Edmonton, also Saskatoon and Regina. So there'll be some celebration parties. And if you want to come out and meet somebody, you watch it and you want to meet these companies, there's a great chance that they're going to be there mingling with you. Obviously, we're following the COVID rules and tables of 10 and things like that. But we'll kind of go from there. But again, thank you, Andrew, for your time today. I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a fantastic day.
Thanks for having me. You too.